Did you know that motivation is overrated? Environment often matters more. Welcome to our business book club. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the team. We are jumping into Atomic Habits Part 2 today. We're going to try and crush Chapter 6 all the way through to the end so we can start our next book. And it all starts with chapter number 6, which is motivation is overrated. Environment often matters most. Remember, this is all about the atomic habits, the baby things that you do, the steps that you take that build up into massive success, not only when it comes to the habits that you perform, but even towards your goals. I did this workshop that I did kind of like inspired me to create this thing called the inner circle to take it even to the next level, talking about like how you can reprogram your brain so that you can get yourself to take the actions of building your business, of connecting with your family, of focusing on your health without even having to think about it. And such a big part of this is chapter number 6, which is motivation is overrated. Now, as we go, I definitely want to hear from you guys what your biggest takeaways are. And of course, we're going to try and blast through this a little bit faster than we normally do, but I do want to hear from you guys as we go in the chat. Type it here, no matter if you're watching this on the replay or you're making it here live. By the way, let me just say how thankful I am to have you here in the book club, be wanting to grow, be a leader who is creating some incredible things in the world when it comes to your business, doing the uncomfortable things, stepping out, and being the leader that the world needs now more than ever. I appreciate you so much for that, and I want to get behind you and do whatever I can to help you. And that's something that I'm actually going to be talking about in a minute called our inner circle, but let's dive into chapter number 6. So in chapter number 6, there was a colleague of James Clear, Thorndike, and her colleagues designed a 6-month study to alter the choice architecture of a hospital cafeteria. They started by changing how drinks were arranged in the room. Originally, the refrigerators located next to the cash registers in the cafeteria were filled with only soda. The researchers added water as an option at each one. Additionally, they placed baskets of water next to the food stations throughout the room. Soda was still in the primary refrigerators, but water was now available at all drink locations. Over the next 3 months, the number of soda sales in the hospital dropped by 11.4%. Meanwhile, sales of bottled water increased by 25.8%. They made similar adjustments and saw similar results with the food, even the food in the cafeteria. Nobody had said a word to anyone eating there. So this is something that is extremely powerful when you understand how your environment matters more than your motivation. So in this specific example, removing Coke, actually they didn't even remove it. They just add water right next to it. When we have these like signs and symbols in the water bottle, and it's like, oh my God, I want to drink healthier. I want to drink more water. And having it visible is like the game changer when it comes to environment control. I mean, that's literally why I have this thing right next to me at the desk, is because I get thirsty a lot when I'm having these conversations with you guys. But also, like, I want to remind myself I got to keep drinking water, and making it visible is a game changer. So what in your life, what habits can you work on by literally designing an environment to make it easier for you to do that? He said environment design is powerful, not only because it influences how we engage with the world, but also because we rarely do it. Most people live in a world others have created for them, but you can alter the spaces where you live and work to increase your exposure to positive cues and reduce your exposure to negative ones. Environment design allows you to take back control and become the architect of your life, be the designer of your world, and not merely the consumer of it. Now, I want to talk about one way that I actually am doing this for 2024 to help people, help actually at least 500 people get started on building their business, connecting with their family, focusing on their health, and allowing themselves to get to the point where they can leave their 9-to-5 if they choose to. Now, this is what Teresa and I did last year, where I left my police career. She had left her corporate life in the hospital world. And one of the ways that we did that actually set us up for the most success of being able to grow our business exponentially was to literally design an environment that allowed us to step into the areas that we knew was going to make the biggest impact and eliminate all of the other stuff. One of the ways we did that is the people that we surrounded ourselves with. It was getting into the right room, getting into a room of people that weren't like every other police officer that I was hanging around, every other corporate person that Teresa was hanging around. It was people who are hungry to grow, people who were leaders, people who wanted to excel in their business, people who wanted to connect better with their family, people who did not want to literally use their business growth to actually burn themselves out or to overwhelm themselves or to sacrifice their health. And when we stepped into a room that was designed like that, it literally helped us to take those actions and just think of them as normal. And I got to tell you, like every time I would go back to work, I would just hear everybody complaining and whining and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I need to get myself out of this environment, make sure that I put myself in an environment of people who want to get after it, people who aren't making excuses. They're going out there and they're taking action, because it was very easy for me to start making excuses when I was in that kind of environment. So if that is something that you guys, I know you guys are in this environment, you really want to be able to grow when it comes to like the books that we read, personal growth, personal development, all those kind of things. We have something that we just relaunched called the Inner Circle. This is literally the room where it feels like maybe you don't even deserve to be in there, but in reality, it's like everybody in there wants to grow, is hungry as you are. They're trying to grow their business. They're trying to work on their family connection and continue to keep their health at a higher level. It's amazing what happens when you step into that room. So I wanted to bring that up because that's something that we're going to be talking about this weekend. Kurt and I are going to be putting together, as well as Teresa. We're going to be on doing a live call on how to attract the right clients for your business that saves you time, energy, and money. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Inner Circle because those are some things that we're going to be teaching inside of the Inner Circle. But this is really like a tight-knit group of people where it feels like you belong because you're in the right room with the right people. Steve is already a part of the Inner Circle. What's going on, Steve? Good morning. And Randall, how you doing, sir? Welcome. Welcome. By the way, Randall, definitely look into the Inner Circle for sure. This is definitely a place for you to step into. Okay. That was chapter number 6, talking about environment control. One of the things that I just talked about was like who you surround yourself. That is also environment control. Who are you watching on social media? What posts are you listening to or watching? What podcasts are you listening to? What books are you reading? All of that stuff is specific for you being able to take full control over it. So that way you can control the direction that you're taking, the habits that you take, and even the thoughts that you think, and making sure that you have that under control is literally a game changer. All right, chapter number 7, the secret to self-control. Let me see what I highlight here. He said, the people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least. It's easier to practice self-restraint when you don't have to use it very often. So yes, perseverance, grit, and willpower are essential to success, but the way to improve these qualities is by not wishing you were a more disciplined person, but by creating a more disciplined environment. He said, in the long run, we become a product of the environment we live in. That's exactly what I was just talking about. To put it bluntly, I've never seen someone consistently stick to positive habits in a negative environment. I got to tell you, before I actually had something like the Inner Circle where I felt like I was hanging out with the right people and they were also people who valued the same things I did, it was very hard to stay consistent because I didn't have that cheat code. I had the try and get into an environment of negativity and try to be positive through all that, and it's not something that we do very well as humans. He says, a more reliable approach is to cut bad habits off at the source. One of the most practical ways to eliminate a bad habit is to reduce exposure to the cue that causes it. That means we have to make it invisible. So as much as you can, if you have somebody on social media that rubs you the wrong way, unfollow them. If you have somebody who is trying to teach you things, but in reality, when they're teaching you things, they're using shame, guilt, or humiliation, it doesn't feel good when you learn it, unfollow them. Like, take control of those pieces, because when you control the things you can't control, or you can control, you can even control the things you can't, which means the environment that you're in will help you control your habits, your actions, how you feel, how you react, how you respond, depending on the specific people that you're hanging around. Okay, that was chapter number 7. Number 8 is how to make a habit irresistible. I like that. By the way, can you just, the way that he titles these chapters is, it makes you just want to read, or makes me even want to read it even more. He says, let's see. He talks about like the dopamine release. He says, the more attractive an opportunity is, the more likely it is to become habit forming. Habits are a dopamine-driven feedback loop. When dopamine rises, so does our motivation to act. He says, he says, there's a figure in here. I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you see it? All right, I'm going to read what he says here. He says, right before a habit is learned, dopamine is released when the reward is experienced for the first time. Remember, in the first part of this, the first call that we did, we talked about the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. So those are the 4 pieces, right? He says, before we've learned a habit, before it's become automatic, dopamine is released when we get the reward. So we take, we see the cue of our water, right? We grab it. We have a craving like, I got to drink it because I want to be able to lose weight. We drink it. And the reward is we feel better at the end of the day. All right. We feel good about ourselves. Well, he says the first time you do it, you start to experience the dopamine hit at the reward. So after you've done it, he says the next time around, dopamine rises even before you start taking action. So here's the beautiful part of like, like waking up today, not hitting the snooze button and getting up is now you have to experience for the first time. You don't experience that good feeling until after you do the event. But the next time you wake up, you're like, oh, I remember what it's like. Now your body's going to give you a dopamine hit early. And so that's why like getting started as fast as you can, getting started like developing those habits is going to help it make you much more easier. I think also in this chapter, he talks about like, don't try to break the chain when it comes to like your bad habits, but don't break the chain if you have like good habits, because it's very easy for the next day if you stop a habit or break it. I have a lot of people who've been reaching out to me who are part of our 75 Hard program. They're like on the verge of like missing a day. They're like, I'm on day 32 and I'm about to miss this. And I'm like, don't break the chain, because when you break the chain and you start over on day one, it's going to be very easy to keep breaking the chain every other time that it happens. I know that sometimes things happen where you can't control that, but when you break the chain, now your brain is like, oh, it feels rewarding breaking the chain. Now it's so much harder to get back on track. Now you're required to have required to have like up to push through it and to have discipline. And that's something that only we can use for a very short period of time. We don't have discipline to do a million things. We have a limited amount every single day, right? So that's why he says that when you understand how this process works, you can actually go back and realize like after you've had that first time that you've done it, it's now going to trigger earlier on of like, hey, this feels good even before I do it, because you know the reward and what it's going to be. This is just, I love to think about it that way, because like even when I wake up in the morning or if I don't want to do something, I remind myself like, hey, okay, I'm not going to feel good right now, but I'm going to feel good at the end. And when I feel good at the end, it's going to remind me the next time that I do it that I'm going to feel good, and it's going to push me to actually go through that. That's why we have to also be willing to do hard things the first time, right? All right, number 9, the role of family and friends in shaping your habits. I'm going to go back to the inner circle with this one, but I mean, it's like he's literally talking to you guys about this new program. He says, humans are herd animals. We want to fit in, to bond with others, and to earn the respect and approval of our peers. Such inclinations are essential to our survival. For most of our evolutionary history, our ancestors lived in tribes. Becoming separated from the tribe, or worse, being cast out, was a death sentence. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. He says, meanwhile, those who collaborated and bonded with others enjoyed increased safety, mating opportunities, and access to resources. As Charles Darwin noted, in the long history of humankind, those who learned to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. As a result, one of the deepest human desires is to belong. And this is the ancient preference exerts a powerful influence on your modern behavior. And this ancient preference exerts a powerful influence on our modern behavior. Meaning, we want to feel like we belong. We want to feel like we fit in. We want to feel like we have this group of people that gets us. And if you don't have that, it feels like super frustrating, because it's like, well, I want to do this, but everybody else is doing that. And the pressure that you experience as a human will get you to do that. So I can't tell you how many times like I have a one-on-one client and we're having this conversation about like how they're struggling with doing this thing that we're coming up with on the call, and they're so excited about, but then when they get in their back of the regular life, they're going in this direction. And I'm thinking like, while we're talking about this and exploring this, I'm like, tell me about the environment that you're in and what is actually happening. And when they explain it to me of like, they're spending more time in an environment of the people who go this way rather than go this way, which is what we talked about on the call, it's so much easier to go down that path. Now, for me, being a one-on-one client of mine, you get access to me on Marco Polo. So I'm like, you need to send me some Marco Polos when you get in that situation, because I'm going to be your environment. I'm going to be your accountability partner. I'm also going to be here to tell you like, yes, when they zig, I want you to zag. And when they zag, I want you to zig. I want you to go in the opposite direction, because if they don't have what you want, then you don't want to incorporate the habits of what they have, right? But like really, this is really why also I put together the inner circle, because I know we have, and when it comes to like tribes of people, when we hang out with people that equally want business success, equally want impact in their life, equally want like to make a big impact in their family's life and connect and nurture their family and also not burn themselves out. Now you start to take on the habits of somebody who does this. And when I see this and I see them take off, I'm like, and they point at me and they say, Mark, it was you, like you're coaching and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, no, it was the environment. I put you in the environment so that you can continue to take on the actions and behaviors and thoughts and beliefs of these people who are in here, rather than the people in the outside world who are getting places that you don't want to go, right? So hang out with people who are going places that you want to go. And that's how you really effectively use your environment design. Okay, chapter number 10. This is going pretty fast. How to find and fix bad habits. see what he says. And by the way, I've highlighted very key things in here. This is like the 7th time that I read the book. Every time I read it, it's different. I noticed that I made some highlights in this book the first time around, and they were like more beginner things. But now that I'm seeing it through a different set of eyes, which, by the way, if we ever read a book that you've read before, please like dive into that book again, especially if it's something that you're struggling with. No, only if it's something that you're struggling with or you need to learn. I don't want you to read something if you've already developed and implemented that skill and it's going perfectly for you. I think you should find another skill to do, even if it's not in alignment with the book that we're reading. But I would suggest that if it's something you're struggling with still, read it again, because you will catch out so many other nuggets that you never would have gotten the first time. Okay, this is what I highlight in this chapter, which is how to find and fix your bad habits. Here's the powerful part. There are many different ways to address the same underlying motive. One person might learn to reduce stress by smoking a cigarette. Another person learns to ease their anxiety by going for a run. Your current habits are not necessarily the best way to solve the problems that you face. They are just the methods you learn to use and are currently using right now. Once you associate a solution with a problem you need to solve, you keep coming back to it. So what he's kind of like explaining is like, when we think about the bad habits that we have, I just want to say bad habits. Like basically I like to think of bad habits as like habits that are moving you away from your goals. Right? So if you're taking an action and it's moving you away from your goals, it's benefiting you in some way. And you have to figure out like, how is it benefiting me? And what is a good habit that I can put in place that will help do those same benefits, but it'll actually head me towards my goal. This is something that also changed the game for me in my business, because back in the day when I was giving it all to my career, giving it all to everything outside of my family and my health, and I was 100 pounds overweight, and I was not showing up as the father that I needed to. I was like a zombie. I was angry all the time. Like when I was that person, like I was literally thinking about like, how can I spend as much time and energy as physically possible in this one area? Like I have to have success. My job is to bring in money for my family. And if I'm not doing this well, then I'm not able to help support them. Like that is my job and responsibility. But when I realized that doing that and then having this question posed to me of like, well, how could you excel at both? How could you excel in your business, in your career, and when it comes to being the father that you want to be? It opened up the doors, because so many of the bad habits that I had were only getting me directed towards making money over here, but I didn't realize that there was a beautiful place in the middle where you can excel at both. And that's the matter of like sitting down and thinking about, okay, what are the bad habits that I'm performing right now? What is it giving me? And how can I solve that problem in a different way that's in alignment with where I want to go? It's a game changer. I mean, this is why I highly encourage everybody on the planet to have a life and performance coach, somebody who can get in and find out what those bad habits are and ask them enough questions to help them reframe it and find a good way of doing and achieving that same goal, but doing it in a way that's in alignment with your specific goals. It's a game changer when you start asking questions. And that one question for me of how could you excel at both opened the door for me. It was just one question, and it made it possible to be able to excel at both for me. And that's why I left my LAPD job last year, because I was willing to see things differently. I was willing to try something different. Aaron, good morning. Good morning. Another member of Inner Circle. What's going on, Aaron? Okay. Chapter number 11, walk slowly, but never backwards. He says, it's easy to be in motion and convince yourself that you're still making progress. You think, I've got conversations going with 4 potential clients right now. This is good. We're moving in the right direction. Or I brainstormed some ideas for that book I want to write. So this is really coming together. He says, motion makes you feel like you're getting things done, but really you're just preparing to do something. He says, when preparation becomes a form of procrastination, you need to change something. You don't want to merely be planning. You want to be practicing. If you want to master a habit, the key is to start with repetition, not perfection. You don't need to map out every feature of a new habit. You just need to practice it. This is the first takeaway from the 3rd law. You just need to get your reps in. I know a lot of you guys are like that too, where it's once you get enough reps in, it just naturally becomes something you've done. I know for me, kind of talked about it before, like losing 100 pounds wasn't like, I thought it was going to be like this big monumental thing, and I had to like, what do you call that? Starve myself in order to make it happen. Go out and run on an empty stomach and do all of these kind of things. But I didn't realize it was just the small habits that I was performing. And when I started to perform the habits of, waking up, exercising, eating well, drinking water, taking care of my body, that it actually did turn around in the end, that it was those small habits that actually made the biggest difference for me, right? And that's why, like he says, walk slowly but never backwards. As long as you're taking action, you're going to see if it's the right action or the wrong action. But if you're just preparing, if you're just thinking about it, and there is a caveat, a dichotomy here, like you probably should think about it a little bit, but not to the point where you're like thinking about it for 3 weeks. Like you think about it, you give yourself a deadline. It's always worked for me is like, I'm going to think about this decision until this day. And then after that day, I'm going to make a decision that specific moment. Like usually I'll actually make a decision before that. Teresa kind of like gets upset at me because I am the quick to decide and slow to change type of person. Because I'm like, if this isn't working, I want to change it now. I don't want to wait, 3 weeks to decide if I'm going to join this program. I don't want to wait, this long before I make a decision here. Like I want to decide now. So let's bring all of the things to the table. Aaron knows this, like bring all the information to the table and then we'll make a decision from there. But I don't like putting things off. And when you can get into that habit, you realize that you'll find out so many things of what to do and what not to do just from the form of acting. And Lauren, good morning. Good morning. Yes, I love this book too. Okay. Chapter number 12, the law of least effort. He says, in a sense, every habit is just an obstacle to getting what you really want. Diet is an obstacle to getting fit. Meditation is an obstacle to feeling calm. Journaling is an obstacle to thinking clearly. You don't actually want the habit itself. What you really want is the outcome that the habit delivers. The greater the obstacle that is, the more difficult the habit. The more friction there is between you and your desired end state. This is why it's crucial to make your habits so easy that you'll do them even when you don't feel like it. If you can make your good habits more convenient, you're more likely to follow through on them. This is why we want to make our good habits, as easily as possible, which is, if you're in the right environment, if you have access to water instead of Coke, if you don't make a decision of like, I'm just going to figure out like what I'm going to eat on the fly. All of these things can set you up for success. He says how to achieve more with less effort. Imagine you're holding a garden hose that's bent in the middle. Some water can flow through, but not very much. If you want to increase the rate at which water passes through the hose, you have two options. The first option is to crank up the valve and force more water out. I feel like that's what most of us do. The second option is to simply remove the bend in the hose and let the water flow through more naturally. Trying to pump up your motivation to stick with a hard habit is like trying to force water through a bent hose. You can do it, but it requires a lot of effort, increases the tension in your life. Meanwhile, making your habit simple and easy is like removing the bend in the hose, rather than trying to overcome the friction in your life. So I want to give you another example when it comes to business, okay? So this weekend, Kurt and I are going to be getting on. We're going to be talking about like how to create powerful video that attracts the right clients for your business. So you don't have to spend all of this extra time messaging a million people, like trying to find your people, only to know that they're just trying to like show you some love on your post or whatever. And it's just like taking a whole lot of time and energy, right? And so when I think about that, when I think about actually having a specific goal, but making it as easy as possible to get there, I think about like not trying to force your own strengths or your weaknesses. Here's what I mean. If I'm really good on video and interviewing, I can just like lean into that and make one piece of content and take that content and make it into 47 million pieces of content. I can make it into a reel. I can make it into a post. I can make it into an email. I can send it to Rev to be able to like pull out all the words that I said and literally just make it into a blog post. Like there are so many ways that you can take one piece of content and literally have an exponential thing and have you be in your zone of genius because you really love, whether it's podcasting or videos or posts or whatever. You can literally, now you can even do it on YouTube where you take a script, you give it to an AI generated tool, it literally creates a video for you. It has the B-roll, has everything. And it's basically your words. It's said, if you want to say it yourself, or you want to say it with an AI-generated tool, you can have all of that done, and you don't even have to be on video. Now, I'm not saying that that's the best thing, but I'm saying there's so many different opportunities here that people don't even know about because they only think that there's one right, best, only way to do this, and there's not. There's a bunch of other easier ways, and it's an individual thing. I can't tell you what's the easiest for you because we haven't had a conversation. I don't know what you like, what you dislike, what you hate, what you absolutely love doing. And if we can figure out like what you love doing and do more of that and then break it up into a million different things, boom, such a game changer, right? Julie says, yes, I love that water hose analogy. Me too. I definitely love it. And I feel like that's been a big part of my life is having a kinked hose, and instead of going back and like unkinking it, like literally trying to turn the water on more and more and more and more, and wondering why I have all that tension and stress in my life, right? All right. Number 13, how to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. He said, habits are like an entrance ramp to a highway. They lead you down a path, and before you know it, you're speeding toward the next behavior. It seems to be easier to continue what you were already doing than to start doing something different. You sit through a bad movie for 2 hours. You keep snacking even when you're already full. He's like, you check your phone for just a second. By the way, my daughter says that all the time. Just a second. And that means like 10 minutes in her time. And soon you have to spend 20 minutes staring at the screen. In this way, the habits you follow without thinking often determine the choices you make when you are thinking. There's this little graph here. It's called decisive moments. And what it basically says is when you start making a good choice, you will make more good choices in the future. I mean, have you ever found that where like you wake up on the right side of the bed and you overcome something that usually you'd scream out or get frustrated with your kids, and then like the whole other rest of the day is like it's positive, 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 positive. You're like, this is great. Like I love today, right? And then you have the other days where you like wake up on the wrong side of the bed. You have like you wake up and you see somebody makes a comment on one of your posts or something like that. This actually happened to me. Made me turn off notifications for YouTube, and by doing that, like literally it would go down, 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 down. And the beautiful part is like he says, like your habits and your actions are kind of like a ramp into the highway. That's why everybody talks about like morning routines. I hate the word of morning routines, but I love the idea because it's been running the show for me for a while now without even having to think about it. But it would start off with like me getting up, drinking some water, me reading my personal development book, me listening to some like affirmations, me like, and what it did, it starts to get up to the top. So by the time I go to the outside world, hear me on this, okay? So important. By the time I get to the outside world, I'm already 10 steps ahead of everyone else because I'm leaning into my positivity of my growth, my affirmations. I've already got my workout in, like, and most people are just waking up. Getting ahead of the rest of the world is the secret, I really feel, like to having a very hugely successful day. Because even if you don't do anything else, you've crushed so much. It's been like, it's so much harder to go back down because you're already at that state. That's why getting up, getting started, taking that step will be the snowball that even if something bad happens, it'll bring you down a little bit, but it'll help you to continue go up, up, and up. So if you're somebody who doesn't have something like that, definitely plug into something so that you can make sure that you start your day off in that way. All right, chapter number 14, how to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. He said, a commitment device is a choice you make in the present that controls your actions in the future. It is a way to lock in future behavior, bind you to good habits and restrict you from bad ones. When Victor Hugo shut his clothes away so he could focus on writing, he was creating a commitment device. So there's a story that he has in the book. And it's basically, somebody wanted to write a book. And he was procrastinating. And so what he did is he's the kind of person he liked to go outside and show off his fashion and show off his clothes and all that kind of stuff, is he locked his clothes in kind of like a trunk and gave somebody else the key and said, you cannot let me have this key until the book is done being written. And he said that was a commitment device because he's like, I'm not going outside in these raggedy clothes, so I'm going to sit in here and write my book. And he says he wrote the book in like a certain amount of time, which was super quick. And he ended up being able to like write this very powerful book because he had a commitment device. Now, a commitment device could be a person. It could be, hey, I'm going to the gym every day at 6 a.m. Do you want to go with me? Or can I check in with you every single day? Like that's really what accountability is. It's kind of like that, a commitment device, but there's many other ways that you can actually set yourself up for a commitment device. One of the things is like automatic bill pay. You put automatic bill pay on, you know for sure it's automatically going to happen. So you better have money in your account, right? Thinking about ways that you can do this so that in advance you can make the decisions when your mind is right, when you're focused on your goals. You can think about like meal prepping, and when you're meal prepping and you know that when you get to work, sometimes the meals that are there or where your friends are going to go are a little bit more, they look better, but you're going to leave your credit cards at home to make sure that you can't buy anything. Now you're like locking yourself in. You're like, I have to eat this food. I don't have any money. I don't have any credit cards. I can't buy anything. So there's different ways that you can find commitment devices to make it so that you never take that action that you don't want to take ever again. And finding those commitment devices for me has also been telling people who are on a journey with me what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it. And when that becomes the thing, they know. And what's funny is like, I feel like they're going to hold me to it because they're like literally thinking about me and making sure that they're not thinking about me at all. But because I said it out loud to them, it holds me to doing it. And I always show up way better for other people than I show up for myself. And so that's one thing that I use for myself. Randall says, I created a new habit of reading 20 pages of something first thing in the morning. Yes, Randall, setting your mind, right? Setting your mind. I know for me, personal growth is like, it's the key to change. Really, I believe that personal growth, if you want to change your life, you need to employ personal growth. There's a reason why we have this book club, is because I know how much of an impact personal growth can have. And literally it steers our mindset in the morning to head in the right direction. All right, chapter number 15. Wow. Okay, we got like 15 more minutes. So let me rush through these real quick. The cardinal rule of behavior change, all right? He says, we are more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying. This is entirely logical. Feelings of pleasure, even minor ones like washing your hands with soap that smells nice and lathers well, are signals to tell the brain, this feels good, do this again next time. Pleasure teaches your brain that a behavior is worth remembering. He says, what is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. He says, you learn what not to do in the future based on what you are rewarded for doing or punished for doing in the past. Positive emotions cultivate habits. Negative emotions destroy them. The first 3 laws of behavior change: make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy, increase the odds that a behavior will be performed this time. He says the 4th law of behavior change: make it satisfying, increases the odds that a behavior will be repeated next time. It completes the habit loop. So, the habit loop. One of the things that I do all the time in any of the programs that I run is make sure that I'm recognizing what I want repeated. For you guys who are business owners, who have a kind of like coaching-based business, I want to highly encourage you to make sure that you are recognizing what you want repeated. I also want to encourage you, if you're a parent and it's valuable, like to teach your kids lessons, reward them what you want repeated rather than focusing on punishing them for what they did wrong. I always like to reward what I want repeated in public so everybody can hear it and everybody sees, oh my God, that's the way to get recognized, and they're going to be more likely to do it. I used it in police work. I used it when I was talking to criminals. I use it so many different places. You can use it to make sure that people know, oh, so this is a valuable thing that I did. I'm going to keep doing it. And then when you talk about those things that people didn't do well, I would keep that to an individual kind of like basis. I would not call that out to someone in terms of like punishing. But definitely using what gets rewarded, gets repeated is a game changer. I have a puppy. His name is Rocket, and he is 7 months old. And all he does is ask himself, I think in his brain, how do I get more rewarded? And so if he jumps on us and we go to pet him, he's like, oh, jumping gets me rewarded. I'm going to keep doing that. When he jumps on us and we ignore him, he's like, I don't like being ignored. I'm not going to do that. And so we literally have this game where we're like, guys, and I tell this to my kids all the time, what gets rewarded gets repeated. So if he finds that he's getting rewarded for doing things that we don't want him to do, we need to figure out like how to not do that, right? But the same thing is true. If he's like trying to like, I don't know, bark at a dog or do whatever, and I give him another job to do, and I say, hey, can you sit? Can you touch? And when he like pays attention to me, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Let me give you this reward. And now he's like, oh, when I pay attention to dad, I get rewarded. We are just like animals like that, guys. We want to continue to get rewarded, and we'll continue doing the things that people call out to us for. Had a call with a one-on-one client where we were discussing this related to their relationship. And that was like, it's very easy to think about all the things your significant other doesn't do for you and all the things that you wish they had done. But have you thought about the things that they do and how you can recognize them for actually doing those things? Because a lot of times we think that we have to point out the negative in order to get it fixed. I find the opposite is true. When we point out the positive, we get more positive results. So when it's like, hey, you know what? I just want to appreciate you for working so hard, working all these hours, doing all these things, coming home, still having to take care of all these things. I just want to say, like, I appreciate you. I know you really love us, and this is the reason why you do that. So I just want to say thank you for doing that. And I got to tell you how many people have gotten that advice from me during a one-on-one call, and they've come back the next week and they're like, everything changed. I don't know, like he started to do these things or she started to do these things. And I'm like, yes, because when you start to recognize them for the things that they are doing, they want to continue to do that. So don't just think about this in business. Don't just think about this in parenting, but also thinking about it when it comes to your spouse. And you can thank me later when you do this, because once you do this and you have that connection with your spouse, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Just keep doing it. All right. Just keep recognizing what you want repeated. All right. Number 16, how to stick with good habits every day. He says, despite all the benefits, many people resist the idea of tracking and measuring things. It can feel like a burden because it forces you into two habits, the habit you're trying to build and then the habit of tracking it. Counting calories sounds like a hassle when you're already struggling to follow a diet. Writing down sales calls seems tedious when you've got work to do. It feels easier to say, I'll just eat less, or I'll try harder, or I'll remember to do it. People inevitably tell me things like, I have a decision journal, but I wish I used it more. Or I recorded my workouts for a week, but then I quit. I've been there myself. He says, I once made a food log to track my calories. I managed to do it for one meal and then gave up. He said, tracking isn't for everyone, but nearly anyone can benefit from it from some form, even if it's only temporary. So one of the ways that I do this is inside of different programs that I have a tracker that I've designed based off of what the person wants to be able to achieve in it. Inside of the Ideal Leader Blueprint, somebody wants to excel in their career, excel when it comes to their business, excel with their family connection, and excel when it comes to their physical and mental health. There's certain elements that you can track to make sure that you're on point and see how often you're doing it and see which habits you need to change or focus on or what adjustments need to be made. And it's really helpful for me as the coach to be able to guide them in different directions, but it's even more helpful for them to go, I just noticed, like, I haven't done this thing for like 3 weeks. And we're like, no wonder why your business isn't growing. No wonder why your connection with your family isn't growing. No wonder why you're not losing weight or feeling healthier. It's because you didn't have that. And so many times we think we just check the boxes in our mind when we don't have a tracker. And then before we know it, we're like way off course. And that's why for me personally, I also have a tracker that I use. And I don't only put my business activities on it. It also has time to connect with Andrew and Alyssa. I even put their love language. I'm like, don't forget, Andrew's love language is quality time. Alyssa's is words of affirmation. Lean into their love language today for at least 15 minutes. And then Teresa's on there too. And I have all of these different things on the tracker because I want to make sure that I put as much time and energy as I do into my business. I also put it into my personal life, into my connection, into my health. And so being able to track it is a game changer because it shows you where you can make adjustments in the future. Number 17 is how an accountability partner can change everything. I know we kind of talked about this with the inner circle, but he says, just as we are more likely to repeat an experience when the ending is satisfying, we're also more likely to avoid an experience when the ending is painful. Pain is an effective teacher. If failure is painful, it gets fixed. If a failure is relatively painless, it gets ignored. The more immediate and more costly a mistake is, the faster you will learn from it. The threat of bad reviews forces a plumber to be good at his job. The possibility of a customer never returning makes restaurants create good food. The cost of cutting the wrong blood vessel makes a surgeon a master human anatomy and cut carefully. When the consequences are severe, people learn quickly. So this one is having that accountability partner to be there to guide you, to see when you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, or to like just really ask you even questions to see if you're on the right path is a game changer. I say game changer a lot too, because all of these things, when you think about them all singularly, they can make a huge impact in somebody's life. But when you add them on and you add them on top of all of them, it really can change your life. Number 18, the truth about talent, when genes matter and when they don't. He said, the secret to maximizing your odds of success is to choose the right field of competition. This is true just with a habit change as it is with sports and business. Habits are easier to perform and more satisfying to stick with when they align with your natural inclinations and ability. So he's talking about like these two people, Michael Phelps and Hicham El Gorak. Basically, one is a Olympic athlete when it comes to swimming, and the other one is an Olympic athlete when it comes to track and field. And he's like, if you were to put Michael Phelps on the track and field because of his size, because of his stature, because of his strengths and his weaknesses, he would suck. But the same would happen for the runner if you put him in the pool. And so playing to some of your strengths is an important piece of that. I mean, I kind of talked about that a little earlier. So when we're talking about strengths, if your strengths is video, you should do more video content. If your strengths is audio, you should do more audio content. If your strength is writing, you should write more, right? Have another one-on-one client who is like really great at interviewing people. Like she's a professional journalist, and I pushed her to like have a conversation with her about like getting a podcast. And she's like, people have been telling me about this a long time. I'm like, you need to do this. It's literally like ingrained in you. You're the best in the world at it. You literally get paid for it. And so now she's starting it, and I'm going to be shouting it out a lot here. Because she is really great at what she does. But it's leaning into your strengths. And now that you have those strengths, now you can do all of those other things, maybe like making videos or doing all those other posts that maybe you don't like to. You can pull it from the fact that you did a podcast episode and you now have unlimited content, right? So it's all about like choosing the right field of competition by using your strengths. And it's the same with habits. Like what naturally comes to you. Like, what are some things that people work at that you just find super easy? He says, what feels like more fun for you, but it feels like work for others? He says, what makes you lose track of time? He says, where do you get better returns than the average person? Thinking about those things will help you not only create like better habits, but also figure out like, hey, maybe I should use my strengths in this habit versus like trying to combat and fight against and try to improve my weaknesses, right? Okay. Chapter number 19, we're almost there, guys. The Goldilocks rule, how to stay motivated in life and work. This one I said, the Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. They're not too hard and not too easy. They're just right. It has this beautiful graphic in there that says basically like, if you do something that's super easy, like have a super easy goal, it's like, it's not taxing enough. You're going to get bored. If you throw it way on the opposite side where it's like so hard, it's like the most difficult thing ever, you're actually not going to sustain that because it's something that you're going to feel like you're failing over and over again. But there's this like middle ground that's like, it's not too easy. It's not too hard. It's still uncomfortable. It's called the uncomfortable land. And you have to grow and you have to like learn and you have to try new things and you have to fail and you have to make mistakes. But this beautiful place in the middle is really where you want your habits to be. Not like super duper easy where it just gets totally boring or really, really hard, but somewhere right in the middle. I really like that breakdown that he had. So finding that middle ground. All right. Chapter number 20, the downside of creating good habits. By the way, if you guys have not read this book, I'm not doing it a service. I'm making sure that I like capture all the real powerful moments that I highlighted. I also don't feel like you have to learn every single thing from a book. You can just pull like a couple things and it's like way worth it. But also if you haven't read Atomic Habits, you definitely should pick it up and read it. All right. The downside of creating good habits. Oof. Another good Belief Bridge based title. Okay. He says, reflection and review enables the long-term improvement of all habits because it makes you aware of your mistakes and helps you consider possible paths for improvement. Without reflection, we can make excuses, create rationalizations, and lie to ourselves. We have no process for determining whether you're performing better or worse compared to yesterday. So the downside of creating good habits. Here's the downside of creating good habits. When I have a one-on-one call, and I keep saying this, but it's like I want to give you guys real life examples. When I have a one-on-one call with somebody, if they're taking actions over and over and over and over again, and we're not measuring it, they're not telling me like what kind of results they're getting. They're not telling me like if they should make an adjustment. Then basically what we do is we get stuck into doing the same habit over and over and over again, and we find out later that it's not even working. Let me give you an example. So for me, growing on Facebook and Instagram, like I was growing for a long time, like 7 or 8 years. And I have a pretty big following on Facebook, like 30,000 on Instagram. But it was like, I was just forcing it and forcing it and forcing it. And I don't love those two platforms in terms of like being able to find people and have conversations. I'm an introvert. That's not my thing. Thank God I have a team who's able to do that now, right? But when I'm doing that, I found that like I was forcing and spending so much time on that, I couldn't do anything else outside of that realm. And it wasn't until I realized like, this really isn't my strength, but also like, I don't really love this as much as I would love tapping into a podcast or tapping into a YouTube. Obviously, that's what I'm doing right now. And figuring out ways of doing things that I absolutely love. And knowing that I need to have and set specific goals and measure them to see if what I'm doing is actually making a difference. I think that's one of the big things why everybody on the planet needs a coach is that you start taking actions and you keep taking those actions over and over and over again because you expect there to be like this sudden boom and then all of a sudden you're going to see success. And you do it for like 3 months and 6 months and 12 months and 18 months and it's literally hasn't gotten you anything. and yet you still keep doing it because that's what you've always done, right? And so there's this process called evolution that is very important in your business, just like how it's been in our world, right? And that is like evolving to think about, I learned a lot from this. I learned a lot from posting on social media. I learned a lot from communicating with clients in DMs. I'm really good at making sales. I still need to work on the marketing piece of it, but like I've learned a lot from that. But if this thing is not being the best return on my investment, what if I took those same skills and move them over into podcasting, move them over into YouTube, move them over into doing Zoom calls, move them over into the inner circle. And by doing that, it actually helped me speed up the process because you take everything that you learn and move it into the next thing. Let me pause on that for a second, guys, because this is so critical. So one of the things that like I constantly remind myself is every time I take a course, I learn a new skill, I read a new book, I listen to a new podcast, I take that skill or that mindset and I get to implant it in here. And everybody who has a conversation with me, everybody who joins one of my programs, everybody who has a one-on-one with me, they get access to everything that I've ever learned, everything that I've gone through, all the struggles I've been through, from the point of like being 100 pounds overweight to now being how I am now, being like giving it all to my police career, to be able to leave my police career so I can spend more time with my family, missing memories with my family, to now being able to be there for like all these kind of events. And they get to experience that when they're on a call with me. They get to experience that when we're on a YouTube live. They get to experience that when they're part of our inner circle. And it's the same thing with you guys. So many times we diminish what we do, but hear me on this. You've grown so much. You've learned so much. You've like experienced so much, and you get to bring all of that into your next conversation, into the next time you have a conversation with your kids, into the next coaching call you have, into the process of your business or whoever you're masterminding with. You get to bring all of that stuff with you. So please do not forget about that. Every single one of these skills, I know we're like, this is the one skill that's going to help me like tip over the scales. This is the one skill. And here's the thing, like for me, mine was life and legacy leadership coaching, right? I noticed that once I did that, it tipped the scale. But it wasn't that specific thing that if I didn't have all of these other skills, who knows if this skill would have even been the thing. And so just like James Clear talked before, like if you have a room that's 24 degrees and you have an ice cube there and it's 24 degrees and it heats up, right? 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, no change, virtually no change. We don't see anything. But then from 31 to 32, the ice cube starts to melt. And that's the way that I look at skills. That's the way I look at mindset. That's the way I look at courses, at books, at all these things. It's like I have this accumulation of all the things that I'm learning. And as I'm going, something's going to tip the scale. I don't know what it is, but I'm in constant learning mode. So if I take this course and I learn how to do YouTube, I take this course, I learn how to do Facebook ads. I take this course, I learned how to eat healthier. I take this course, I learn how the body works and the mechanics there. Every single thing I learn now becomes a part of me, and it makes me more valuable to the marketplace. But it also is something that once I hit that level of that specific skill, it's going to trigger all of these other ones to be able to be used. And I think we don't remember that often enough. We often think about all the things we have to do or need to learn, and we don't realize how far we've come, how far you've gone, all the things you've learned, the obstacles you've been through. And that, my friends, is your freaking superpower. Not only when it comes to the habits that you've learned, but all the things you do in business, all the things you do with family, all the connections that you make, all those little seeds of wisdom that you plant in people has a lot to do with the fact that you were willing to take action, the fact that you were willing to get uncomfortable, to continue to learn, to continue to grow. And I'm so freaking proud of you and so excited that you're a part of this community, because it means a lot to me to be in a room of people who are willing to go out there, willing to get uncomfortable, because they know the world needs what they do in their business. And also they know that their kids need to see that they're just as important as their business is. And I love being able to do life with you guys because we have the ability of showing up on that level. You guys make us all better. And I appreciate you for doing that. All right, last chapter, the conclusion. He said, the secret to results that last. He says, sometimes a habit can be hard to remember, but then you'll need to make it obvious. Other times you won't feel like starting, and then you'll have to make it more attractive. In many cases, you may find the habit will be too difficult, and then you'll have to find out how to make it easy. And sometimes you won't feel like sticking to it, and then you'll have to make it satisfying. There's always a way to reframe, to adjust, to develop that new habit, to take that next action, if you are willing to find it. And this is a beautiful place to stop here. And I'll share what the next book is going to be a little bit later this week. But if you are willing to take that next action and to not make it mean something about you, and instead make it mean something about your journey, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to learn, that you're willing to find a new way. Just because your brain tries to convince you there's only one right, best only way is not the truth. There's a million ways to improve your habits. There's a million ways to reach your goals. And of course, if we can be a part of that, definitely tap into our inner circle. If you have no idea what that is, if you go below this video once we're done, click the join button. You can see what it's like to be in a community of family-driven entrepreneurs who want to excel massively in their business, but also create the connections with their family that they truly want to take. It's like $10 a month. It's crazy, all the things that we give you guys, but it's because we want to create an environment that you will be set up for the most likelihood of success. Because the people that you surround yourself with are the most important thing on the planet. They're either pulling you towards your goals or away from your goals, towards your habits or away from your habits. So make sure that you find your community, whether it's with us or not. Make sure you find your community, because there is one out there where you belong. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I know we went through this very quickly. The Atomic Habits book, I know a lot of you guys have read it. Very, very powerful book. Definitely wanted to put up and to read again. I'll be posting a little bit about a book that we're going to read next. It's one that I'm actually personally picking because of the number of surveys that I got from people who joined the book club. I feel like there's one resounding skill that is going to make a huge impact in a lot of people's lives, not only in their business, but also the connection with their family. And it has to do with this word called trust. I'll give you more details of that really soon. Aaron, you're welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being a part of the book club. Thank you for being a part of the inner circle. Thank you for making this the environment where it's okay to be willing to grow. It's okay to get uncomfortable. It's okay to put time and energy, not only to the growing our business, but growing as a parent and growing as a spouse. Appreciate you guys for being here. And I look forward to seeing you guys on Saturday if you can make the call with me and Kurt and Teresa. All right, you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you really soon. All right, bye everybody.